And good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we're going to bring in our Facebook groups. We're going to bring in Atlanta Falcons fans on all Falcons. We're going to bring in Scott Kennedy Sports, both on Facebook. Check them out if you haven't already. Because we got lots to talk about today on a nice, lovely Wednesday morning here in the South. And good morning. I'm Scott Kennedy. I will be your co-host for Coast to Coast Football, along with this guy over in Seattle. That's Nick Kendall. He's in Seattle. I'm in Atlanta. That's why we are Coast to Coast Football. And Nick, we've got a lot to talk about, and it seems like there's some people here ready to chat. That's why we do these live every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., because there's people that get excited. They want to chat, and they make it more fun for us to do. And guys like Michael Ranquillo, who comes in, whether we're doing Broncos, Falcons, NFL, always here with the sport. He's coming in with a $50 super chat, helping to keep the lights on, the power running, upgrading Nick's computer, getting our shows better. The support you show, it's like you're like the Terminator. You can't stop him. It's always it's just awesome, Michael. You don't know how much that means to us, and we can't say thank you enough. So coming in here hot, and just a reminder that these channels are set up for whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, for stars on Facebook or super chats on YouTube is the single best way to support the show, the most direct way, just like Michael did. So thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Helping keep the lights on, helping pay for a new computer, better show, better product for all you guys, and everyone should be a big thank you to Michael for that one, but especially Scott and I. So appreciate it. Love that raspberry color coming in there with the good morning.
Absolutely. Big Al coming in on YouTube. He says, good morning. Nice. Signing a 1-year deal with Calais Campbell should help Grady out. And we'll get into that, and not just Grady, not just Campbell, but Eddie Goldman unretiring, David Onyemata. All of a sudden, you got 4 guys over 300 pounds that can move. Before you were struggling just to get one with Grady out there, and then you were picking up spare parts to try and put guys next to him. Oh, and by the way, Taquan Graham should come back healthy, who was playing at a very high level before he got hurt. All of a sudden, that front of the defense, I feel a little bad for Dean Peace, the former defensive coordinator, who's putting that together with rejects, putting his defense together with rejects from the Titans and Bears waiver wires and scotch tape, maybe a little duct tape. He probably had a little duct tape in there. But I would have liked to have seen him gotten these kind of resources and had some fun. But I am happy for Ryan Nielsen, the new Saints defensive coordinator, came over from the Saints, because this is some real capital being put into the Falcons defense, Nick.
Yeah, and it makes me think, obviously, Campbell, massive player, former second-round pick from University of Miami. It didn't test incredibly well coming out. He's not, an amazing, twitchy athlete, but because of his size and his savviness, it's incredible to watch him at 6'8" still play with leverage. Typically guys that big, they're at an automatic disadvantage, but Campbell can do that. He can play inside, outside. You can play him at 1. You can play him at 3. You can play 4-eye. Versatile player, very good leader as well. You're going to love the presence he brings. He's contributed and been a big player everywhere he's been, whether it be Arizona, Jacksonville, Baltimore. So now getting him in here for 1 year, it's a great addition. I do wonder if it makes it so that, I don't know if it's any indication to this, but I do wonder if it means that Graham could be out for the year. The ACL was week 15? It was pretty late in the year. And those can be, 12 to 16 months.
I feel like it was Chicago, which was week 11.
Okay, I thought it was later than that. But
yeah, I'll double check real quick while you're talking about it. But yeah, we'll see on Taquan Graham. And was it an ACL for sure? For some reason, I didn't think it was.
Okay, I thought it was a ligament injury. Regardless, 1-year deal, Campbell, means that you don't have to rush him back. Your room, if your room next year was Grady, Onyemata, Campbell as your big, main 3 rotating interior defensive linemen, that's great. Anything that you get from Graham, whether it be late in the season or he's ready week 1 or anything, that's gravy. But you're not dependent on him coming back and being a big time contributor with the moves that you've made on the interior defensive line.
He played 11 games last year. So the 11th game, they had a late bye. So it was either the Bears or the game before the Bears. But for some reason, I remember him. I thought he got hurt against the Bears, but he played 11 games last year. So we might as well get into this now just a little bit with Campbell. One of the early comments that I saw was one, and I addressed this when I wrote it up on All Falcons this morning, was, he's older. He'll be 37 years old, but you don't need him to be prime Calais Campbell to really help improve this defense. You've got a decent rotation of big men there, even if you don't include Taquan Graham, and we still haven't talked NFL draft yet. I'd like to bring Abdullah Anderson back here, but he'd be 5th amongst 300-pounders on this team. Makes me wonder if they want to play a little bit more 4-3 some, Nick. Where you can move these guys. You've got some inside-outside leverage instead of that true nose guard. Now I can go Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, and I still have the ability to rotate Graham at end, rotate Calais Campbell at end.
Eddie Goldman too.
Goldman is in there too. He might be a true, 3-type, but you're going to have some versatility up there now. So as far as a player goes, how excited, you see 6-time Pro Bowler, how excited should the Falcons be about Campbell's signing? I mean, on the whole, I'm excited for Falcons fans because it represents kind of a turning point for this team where a player with a lot of options chose the Falcons. To me, it says, okay, the Falcons are emerging from this dark ages of the Thomas Dimitroff back into this era where he really crippled the team. And here we go. I've been writing for 2 years. The rebuild begins in earnest in 2023. And so far, the Terry Fontenot and the Falcons have not disappointed in free agency.
Yeah, and it's a good deal. We don't know what the money is yet. I guess if they gave him like 1 year, $30 million, maybe not as good. But the 1 year deal for the age that he is, the one thing I love is that he's bringing somebody who's been, again, he knows what a successful defense is. He's been there. I mean, he took a Jacksonville team to that Saxonville team in 2017 on the brink of the Super Bowl, and Baltimore a few seasons. So Atlanta, they've had. I mean, God, we don't have to go over the numbers here, but a pretty porous defense for a long time. Well, at least Campbell knows like what is and what is not a good defense, what it takes, what a good execution practice meeting looks like. So hopefully that'll have a trickle down effect for the whole team. And even if he's playing 25% of the snaps this season, 35% of the snaps this season, that's fine. He's a really unique player and he's a great guy to have, not just for the on-field impact, but I also think the demands he's going to have and the know-how of what a functioning, high-quality defense looks like.
Yeah, I think the Falcons going into free agency had the youngest team, I think, by roster. If it wasn't, it was top 3. They could afford to bring in some guys like this on 1-year deals. Someone in the comments on the Facebook page, was like, I don't like all these 1-year deals. I'm like, no. When you've got this much money in free and cap money, you've got a lot of holes to fill. It's okay to get some depth players on 1-year deals, especially when he's 37. You're just happy he still wants to sign a 1-year deal and come to Atlanta. And he may settle down here. One of the talking points that Ian Rappaport put out was he talked with Arthur Blank for 40 minutes about community service and what they do and vision for the team and life after football and what all that means. And that's a good thing. Atlanta's a great town for young and still, if I say young athletes, even young former athletes, 37 is still really young. I mean, you got 50 years of your life to go. It's still really young. So life after football is still really good for him. I want to say hello to some more folks in the chat as it's starting to unwind. Appreciate y'all coming in. Hit those like buttons as you come in. The numbers typically grow throughout the hour. So don't be afraid to ask a question that may have already been asked. We'll hit it again. We know you're coming in a little bit late. Jeremy on time, and he said he agrees. He says, morning, boys, and he's talking about one of our Patreons here. Michael Ranquillo is as consistent as a stopwatch. Yeah, or I like to call him the icebreaker. He's always first. Not only is he every time, he's always first. Roderick over in the UK says bins done. That's how I always remember, bins. Yeah, trash was out yesterday, but those are the bins. Coffee made, ready for another interesting show. Well, you've done your part. Now, hopefully we can deliver ours. Philip Hogginson, good morning, guys. Good morning to you as well. I think we got our international crowd waking up, Nick. Speaking of which, Cristiano Rodon. Good morning, Nick and Scott and chat friends from the Brazilian coast. So I think we've got at least 4 countries represented off the top of my head. So very good to be here. And Philip, thank you so much for coming in green with that super chat. Another generous donation to the show. Keeping my forehead nice and shiny. But Philip comes in with his super chat and his comment. He says, I think the Falcons may surprise a few people this year. Let's get into that just a little bit.
Yeah.
Nick, so far it seems like the national talk around the Atlanta Falcons is, yeah, so what? We don't care. They didn't get Lamar Jackson. I find that a little odd It's just like, when you've done this many things in free agency and then they're fixated. That's the word I keep using, is fixated on the quarterback position. Well, Arthur Smith came out at the owners' meetings yesterday and said, Desmond Ritter's our starter. He's going to be the starter. And we thought about starting him earlier last year, just didn't think he was quite ready, which is fine with me. That team wasn't going anywhere. No reason to throw him to the wolves and hurt his confidence. That's why you're paying $12 million to Marcus Mariota. Let a veteran do that and get paid well for it. Ritter's got a future. Mariota didn't with this team. But now you're building up. The offense, for the most part, was fairly well set last year. You could add a wide receiver. You could add some more permanent pieces to the offensive line. You can always do more and do better. Mm-hmm. But now this offseason, there's a lot going into that defense, Nick, and that should help this team, you'd think. But DraftKings comes in with the over-under at 6.5 on wins. I'm willing to take the over on that one, dude. They've won 7 in back-to-back years, and you can't tell me. I know things change, but you can't tell me this team's going to be worse than it's been.
Yeah, I mean, also you have the Buccaneers taking a step back. We're not sure what's going to happen with the Saints here. Carolina, I think Carolina's in a decent position, but their rookie quarterback, that's such a wild card here. It all comes back to the general consensus, and the bettors don't know / don't believe in Desmond Ridder. And until we have a larger sample size of Desmond Ridder, former 3rd-round pick, then people will continue to question the Falcons. Now, that said, I think the scheme, the infrastructure in place, the moves that they've made, you've raised that baseline a good bit. I'd put them at, I'm pretty surprised it's not 7.5. I would probably put them at about 8 personally, 7.5 to 8.5. But again, and that's just also me being, what does Desmond Ridder bring into the table? What does that offense look like? Is he going to be able to continue to grow, or is he going to take a step back? Because growth is not linear. A lot of people think, year 2, he was here, now he's going to be here. Not really true. Things change. People get more data on you. They find out coverages you struggle with. So it's all about Desmond Ridder. What is he going to be?
Well, you mentioned the Panthers. The Panthers are coming in at 7.5 wins.
That's where I'd put Atlanta.
Who's their quarterback?
Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Yeah,
CJ Stroud. Probably
number
CJ
1 overall
Stroud
pick, though, compared to a 3rd-round pick. There's a little bit more.
Yeah, a 1-year pro against a rookie. We've seen some really, really good quarterbacks lose a lot of games in their first years.
Yeah.
I think Aikman was 1-15. I don't know what Manning was, but I think they may have struggled their first year.
Yeah. They
Matt
really
Ryan came into a really good team. I think he was 12-4 or something his first year. Mm-hmm. But he threw less than he ever did. Want to keep saying hello to the chat coming in because it is getting busy in here. Let me see here. Richard Russell, get on with it. Okay. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate the feedback. Cristiano Rodon says, I really wanted Calais on the Broncos. I think a lot of people did. And Rappaport said he had some other options, but he was done after talking with Arthur Blank today, and says it's going to be the Falcons. Keith Robinson, good morning. Good morning to you as well. And Joe Cannon coming in on Facebook. He says, great morning, Scott and Nick. How about Calais Campbell signing with us? Again, that was kind of the big news for the morning. I know it was definitely big news here in Atlanta, but how big a news is this, for other teams? How big a get would he have been? Is this national news, other than the fact that all news in the NFL is national news?
I think Campbell has reached the point in his career where he's a mercenary, signing the 1-year contract and everything. It's, it's like if Bud Dupree or Melvin Ingram or Justin Houston signed somewhere, is that national news? Well, we recognize the name because the accolades and everything, but it's not a franchise altering kind of move on the field. Now, again, you never know about the leadership and whatnot. From my understanding, Campbell's a pretty great leader and somebody that you'd love in there for that kind of role, but I don't know if it's a national move per se. The big national moves, like, it's going to displace the Lamar Jackson talk right now. Is it going to displace the Washington Commanders sale? No. You'll have like a 1-minute segment, and we have Calais Campbell signing with Atlanta. Anyway, back to whatever we talk about every single day. It's a great move for Atlanta. Don't know if it's altering the league landscape.
No, but is it something that could take you from, hey, this is a team that's going to win 6.5 to this should be a playoff contender? That it makes that 6.5 and 8.5. And frankly, 9 wins in the NFC South.
Doable.
You're in the playoffs. There's a pretty good chance you're in the playoffs. Smart Ride coming in here. He says, morning. The naming Ritter QB1 so early is ridiculous. Kind of, yeah, but what does that mean? It's big for Arthur Smith. He doesn't usually come out and talk definitives. All it means right now is Ritter is ahead of Taylor Heineke.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means right now. Kind of knew that coming in, and not because of anything. Well, I hate it when people take quotes out of thin air and attribute it to official sources. This is the first time the Falcons have said anything. Yeah. Now, Heineke said, I was brought in to be the number 2. That's a pretty trustworthy source. Yeah. Okay, so Ritter, Heineke, we know that. But that's it. That's really all we know. Could things change? Yes, they could. If those are your 2 quarterbacks, or you're going to get a third in there somewhere. Maybe it's Logan Woodside. Maybe he's your third that you picked up from Tennessee last year. Okay, if that's your room, you're willing to say, let's give this a shot. Let's give this a shot and see where we are. And if we need to, if it goes bad, we'll take another swing at the quarterback position next year. So I don't know that it's ridiculous, because you look at the quarterback room right now. Heineke's already said he's coming in at number 2. We're going to give Ritter a shot. And
I want to add to that just a little bit. Desmond Ritter is 1 so early. I don't know if it's ridiculous. Also, Scott, let's say the Falcons are sitting there at 8 and a quarterback falls to them. Is it going to be Bryce Young? No. It's not going to be Bryce Young.
Anthony Richardson?
Is it going to be Anthony Richardson? Maybe. Is it going to be Will Levis? Maybe. And those 2, guess what? Your statement is still probably true. Desmond Ritter is probably your week 1 starter. And if one of those guys beats him out, God bless him. But you're not in a position where you have to do that at all, in my opinion. And so you're not going to get Young. You're not going to get Stroud. Maybe one of Levis or Richardson is a guy that you'd love to have in here. I mean, both of them are incredible tools, arm talent, size, athleticism. Richardson's in his own tier, but Will Levis is pretty damn good with the tools as well. So I think regardless, then Ritter would still be the number 1. Maybe you do want him to have to go out there and earn it with Heineke still, but I don't think that's an issue for Ritter also. He's not going to come in and be like, oh, I'm the number 1. I'm going to sit on my hands.
Yeah, I think he walks into this as a number 1 unless they make a trade. And, the trade in there is, there's only one guy that the Falcons have been linked with, probably will continue to be linked with until it's all said and done, and that's Lamar Jackson. I'm not going to turn this into a Lamar Jackson show, but he's still out there, and he's still interesting, and it's still possible. There's money, there's draft picks, there's opportunity. While you have those 3 things with the Atlanta Falcons, Lamar Jackson's name's going to still pop up. I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't advocate for it, but that's always a possibility. Victor coming in with that the Brazilian R, coming in green. He says, thank you guys for all the effort on the weekly show. We'll appreciate it, sir. Also, can the Calais signing direct the number 8 pick for a cornerback? We could go edge on day 2. I don't think a 37-year-old signing is going to really have any effect on what you want to do in the draft.
Especially early.
Yeah, with number 8. With number 8. Now, may it say, okay, when I get down into the 5th round and I've got a defensive lineman that's 300 pounds or a really fast wide receiver, I might go wide receiver in that case. But I don't think so at number 8. I think at number 8, you're still looking for the top prospect on your board that fits value, that fits value. If you've got a punter, and this is the best punter we've ever seen, he's rated highest on our board. Yeah, forget that. So, some common sense when I say that. That I still think corner is absolutely there. It's absolutely there for sure. But we went Tyree Wilson on Monday, and if Tyree Wilson was still there, and when we do a mock draft, and we'll run through one here late before we get out of here, I'm taking Tyree Wilson again for the Atlanta Falcons. Absolutely. And guess what? I'm putting him in Calais Campbell's hip pocket. So you guys are going to room together. Calais is probably married, but let's say you're in training camp. You guys are going to be roommates. You're going to learn everything this guy does. You're going to become Calais Campbell, because he's 280 pounds, 6'5", 6'6". He's a big dude. So for me, it could be more of a mentorship. It might even encourage me to take an edge, honestly, to have a chance to work with Calais Campbell in his first year. Appreciate the support, though, dude.
And just coming back to
Calais a little bit, and I'll hand it over to you, Nick, on this one, because you can kind of throw all this in together, roll it right in. Ryan comes in, he says, "Good morning, guys. Defense is looking pretty good now. Can we talk Bijan Robinson at number 8?"
Real quick about Campbell and Tyree Wilson. How about the leadership with potential Jalen Carter? I mean, with everything going on there right now, you talk about a guy who's, first thing he wants to do coming in here is like, what's the community service opportunities? You got Grady Jarrett as well, two old heads who've been
And
around the
David
league,
Onyemata, who's 30 years old.
and David Onyemata. I mean, what a good room to potentially bring in Jalen Carter, who maybe has a little growing up to do.
Great shout. Yep, great shout. Now, would he feel I don't fit in here? Maybe you can buddy with Taquan Graham some, but I'm with all these old men. I'm not going to hang out with them other, or they embrace them and say, all right, kid, you're with us.
Grow up. Yep. Now you have big leagues. This is an investment. It's time to figure it out. We've all been there. We've all been the dumbass kid. Sorry for cussing, but getting a car up to, way too fast at some dirt road especially in Iowa, in the country at some point. But now you're an adult. People depend on you. This is generational stuff here. So, time to get it together. So maybe, that room would be pretty good for them. Can we talk about Bijan Robinson at 8? Bijan Robinson, incredible running back talent. Probably, in my book, the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley. I don't think he's quite Saquon Barkley. I don't think he's a big, fast, strong. I mean, Saquon was just unfreaking godly believable. But Bijan is really.
I think Bijan's better than Saquon at the same time.
Oh, I do not agree, but I guess we'll see how it plays out. I think Saquon was unbelievable coming out, but Bijan, I think he's right underneath that. Really, really talented. You could play him at slot receiver and he'd be worth a top 20 pick. That's the type of athlete you're talking about there, playmaker. So 8 overall. I guess my question is, this is the running back barometer, and I really have a hard time taking running back top 8. I mean, we're coming off, again, being a Bronco fan here. Javonte Williams, knee injury. The running back position is just so volatile with those injuries that you have. So 8 overall could be tear it up, in one season. That's true for any position, but I feel like running back even more so. You're probably not playing for that second contract as much as well. So my question is, if you plug Bijan Robinson in this Falcons team, are they a Super Bowl contender this year?
No.
Then you're not. Then you shouldn't take him at 8. I mean, it's really
that. And for me, it's not even that, Ryan. And appreciate the comment, Ryan. And we've already had a little back and forth, and it's all good natured. Because he's not the only one. D. Lawton is coming here talking about Bijan Robinson. Marquise coming in here talking about Bijan Robinson. And here's how it works for me. I grew up when middle linebackers and running backs were still cool. They're not anymore. But, I mean, think of, Gen Xers. Who do we grow up with? Walter Payton, Earl Campbell, go to Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders and Mike Singletary and Brian Urlacher and all these linebackers. Those are devalued positions. Here's my point on this, though. You don't have to have a Bijan Robinson level running back in order to have great success running the football when you're the Atlanta Falcons. Tyler Algier set a William Andrews record last year with just 1,200 yards. And he wasn't even on the roster the first game of the season. He was a healthy scratch. He wasn't even active. You have Caleb Huntley who comes in and tears it up before he tears it up and gets hurt. You've seen what's happened with Cordell Patterson as a $3 million free agent taken off the scrap heap. You don't have to spend a premium pick or spend premium money. In this case, I will use capital because I use picks or money. That is capital, not draft capital, because those are only picks. Just say draft picks. That you don't have to spend a lot to have great success. So why would I? Why would I? It's like, okay, if I've got Bijan Robinson, does he go, if I go full time and I go all in with Algier and then have a number 2 behind him and I share the carry some, is the difference between what Bijan's going to do in this offense that much different than what Tyler Algier is already going to do? 2,000 yards versus 1,500. Is that worth that's top pie in the sky numbers. Is that worth a number 8 pick, or are you better off shoring up a positional value at cornerback or edge with really good prospects? For me, I still want to go with the premium spot, knowing I don't have to have the best running back in the NFL to have the best running game.
Yeah. I mean, running back is what, 15%, 20% of what makes a run game tick. Most of it's the offensive line, some of it's scheme, some of it's quarterback and weapons too. I mean, God, if you have a really good wide receiver, they're going to help create space. Chris Walker coming in saying, morning guys, we got the Raven that I really wanted, but I wasn't expecting the Falcons to get. Yeah, we talked about it at the top of the show. Good get for the Falcons. And I mean, talk about Campbell. We mentioned him being a potential leader, kind of helping pave the way for a player like Tyree Wilson, Jalen Carter, if he was here. Also, Lucas Van Ness. I mean, Lucas Van Ness is an inside-outside guy, and he has been an absolute destroyer of guards in one-on-one situations as a 3 technique, who's an inside-outside versatile player who's pretty raw. I
And
mean,
there's
Campbell,
the word. The versatility that some of these guys are bringing. So you want to run a 3-4, you want to run a 4-3. We're an amoeba. We'll run whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a good get for them there. Bringing it back finally to the edge or the draft talk here for them. I mean, running back, I think there is obviously a point where the guy is too talented that you can't take him. But for me, it's not top 10 for Bijan in this draft class even. I think you're probably talking about 15 to 20. And if you trade it down to 15 to 20, got an extra, second round pick or a 2 next year and a 3 this year or something, move back 6 slots, then maybe we can have that conversation. But I think there's just going to be too talented of a defensive lineman, cornerback, offensive lineman available to have that conversation personally.
And Lee, appreciate you coming in. This is Dwight Freeney 2.0. I'm not sure if you're talking Campbell there. That's a very different player if we're talking somebody else. Dwight Freeney was an undersized,
speed,
high motor, vicious edge. Campbell's more in the Richard Seymour mode. They've been around, just a super, probably played some defensive tackle, moved some end, can play inside and outside. But appreciate you coming into the chat. Dave Glassman coming in with the hearts, the thumbs up. Thank you, sir. Aki Dragon says, good morning. Good morning. And Brandon Swank says, well, what will it cost if DeAndre Hopkins was traded to, I'm thinking the Falcons here. He just says us. Just think about the wideouts look like now. The Falcons did make another signing. Again, this wasn't supposed to be an Atlanta Falcons only show, but they've been the ones making the news lately. They've been making a ton of moves. They've had a lot of opportunity, and they are making moves, including naming their quarterback, not commenting, having a not comment on Lamar Jackson. We're not talking about other teams' players. Signing 2 wide receivers, not just one. They got Mac Hollins, big guy, and they got Scotty Miller. What do you know about Scotty Miller coming in from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, other than what I've seen on his stat sheet on the back of his baseball card?
He's an underneath player that can do a little bit for you. That's a pretty good number 4 wide receiver if you're looking out there. I don't know how much special teams core 4 value he's going to bring to you, but he's a nice guy to have that you can compete out there with. And if he gets beat out in camp, then that's great. But he should help solidify the room and add just another option that you can depend on and get to.
Nick comes in and asks, appreciate you coming in, Nick. Thank you, sir. He says, who should we pick if you're the Falcons, cornerback or edge? Yes. Yes, Nick. For me, it is cornerback or edge, and I want to see how the board falls. Yeah. For me, I think there's 3 guys that I probably want in that spot that I think could be available. Tyree Wilson, Christian Gonzalez, Lucas Van Ness. I want one of those 3. 2 of them will probably go ahead of 8, which would leave Lucas Van Ness. So then you want to say Devin Witherspoon at corner?
Possibly.
Is that where you want to go? Maybe. I would probably go Lucas Van Ness in that case. But yeah, the answer for this, Nick, is yes. Yes. Edge or corner. Unless Jalen Carter comes. If he falls down into there, like Nick talked about earlier, you throw him in with Grady Jarrett, I think has probably been a Man of the Year nominee as well. Mm-hmm. He's 30 years old, mature. You put him in there with these professionals on the offensive line. I mean, on the defensive line with Onyemata, with Calais Campbell, with Grady Jarrett. That'd be a pretty good mentorship room for a talent like Jalen Carter. I could get behind that.
Yeah, very interesting there. And kind of some interesting comments in the chat too, talking about Lucas Van Ness being a 3rd round talent, 2nd round talent. Last year, we saw a guy who was, even less productive in Travon Walker, who was a projection there based on athletic tools, go number 1 overall. Now, personally, I think Lucas Van Ness is a pick 16 to pick 12 kind of range where I'd have him go, but he's a very talented pass rusher. I believe he's only 20 years old, and he tested extremely well at the combine. So he can win in a lot of different ways. So if you take him there, it's not about what he is right now. It's about what you think he can be based on the traits and the tools.
Yeah. When I think talent, I think for football, I think athleticism, size, speed, agility. He's 6'5", 275 pounds with 34-inch arms, a 4.58 40, a 7.02 L cone.
That's really good.
4.32 shuttle. That's a first round talent. Now, can you get that out of him? We'll see. We'll see. But, talent can be all encompassing. So I get the point on that. But physically speaking, he's a high first round physical talent.
Yeah.
100 Realist coming in. He says, good morning, guys. Driving to work and listening to you. Well, be careful. We appreciate it. James Grove says, good morning. Good morning to you as well, James. We had a couple questions in here also about, so we might want to get into a mock draft here shortly, because it's like, hey, who should we go after in this spot? So, we'll get into that. Let me run through the chat real quick and finish up some hellos. Tyler Eccles says, super pumped. The season will be exciting. Now let's trade up for Will Anderson and some gems in the late rounds and get to work. Now that is interesting. If Anderson's sitting there at, let's say, 1, 2, 3, quarterbacks could go 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That leaves the Seahawks at 5. Now, was it Bucky Brooks saying the Seahawks could take Hendon Hooker at 5? Somebody has recently come out and said that. You sent that to me yesterday. That's a little bit of a stretch. There's no way quarterbacks go 1 through 5. Just no way.
No way. I mean, there's never been 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 10 in NFL history, let alone the first 4 picks in a row.
Because I know there's been like 1, 2, 3, and 3.
Justin Fields
would have been close. Where did he come in? About 12?
I think he went 11 or 12, yeah.
Okay. I remember the Achilles Smith year. I think that was a 1, 2, 3 year. But yeah, very interesting.
But Will Anderson's great if he falls within and it's not too expensive to move up. That's fine. I think trading up in the top 10 for a non-quarterback is really risky to do that. I mean, I just don't know if I would be about that, but definitely possible if you love him a lot. And he's been what do you have? 31 tackles for loss in 2021 season as an edge rusher is unfreaking believable. I think he can play in coverage some as well. He's a good enough athlete, leader on that Alabama team, does dirty work up front too. He's, they're not just, setting him up to get pad his stats. Some schemes are like, hey, we got a superstar. We're going to do everything we can to that. Everybody on Alabama is a superstar. So that means that everybody has to do a little bit of the dirty work sometimes. And Anderson did do that for them. So great player. If you can get him, that'd be amazing. Probably won one too many games for that to be a conversation though. So we'll see how it plays out. Ryan Adonis, AK-47, Carter Malone on the edges. Maybe Nolan Smith would be an idea. Nolan Smith is interesting. I think certainly in the conversation that you want to talk about another big leader. The players and coaches at Georgia absolutely adore him. He tested great. I'm really curious to see what his role is going to be at the next level because he is tiny for an edge rusher, like tiny. But could he be a first and second down off-ball? Sorry, Scott, cover your ears. Off-ball linebacker and then a pass rush specialist on third down. Line him over the A-gap, line him over the outside. I mean, somebody's going to have to be a little bit creative with how they use him, but potentially, I mean, not every single player is this person, but like potentially maybe Micah Parsons set the pathway for a type of usage for somebody like a Nolan Smith.
Well, here's what I think. I mentioned it with a 4-3. If I'm running a 4-3 and I got Onyemata and Grady Jarrett inside, and I can rotate Taquan Graham at 285 and Calais Campbell at 300 pounds at one of the defensive ends. Who am I missing? Eddie Goldman can move in and out. Grady Jarrett can play some end in that. If I go big and versatile on my front 4, I can move a smaller guy like Will Anderson around or Nolan Smith around as an old-fashioned 4-3 outside linebacker that I can walk up and down the lines and move them around. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And again, the versatility of this defense should be a lot of fun. Let's get into this though. There's been so many questions on here about who could be available. And when I say we, it's been a lot of Falcons fans early, but again, the Falcons fans are in the news right now. But let's hit on some of this. We've got about 30 minutes or so. Share screen, entire screen, and we can go through at least the top 10 and probably a little bit faster than that. And we will do no trades if that's okay with everybody in the chat. There's lots of y'all in here, so this is your show too. I'm ready to go and grab some mock draft and say good morning to Kevin. Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for coming in on Facebook.
Good to see you.
But I'm ready to go if you are, Nick.
Yeah, let's do. I mean, I see some comments here. I don't want to forget anybody. Brennan saying the Falcons need a wide receiver. Who'd you like the Falcons pick up? Speed guy, Tyler Scott. Reed from Michigan State would be great. Maybe they want to bring in more speed. Maybe somebody in the second, third round. But it's you'll have some options there day 2. Michael Mitchell saying we still need to beef up the offensive line, handle pass blocking. We're only good at run blocking. Part of that was because of the quarterback and the weapons on the outside, but I think that it's certainly a area that you could consider for this Falcons team. If the best player available that you absolutely adore is Peter Skronsky or Paris Johnson at 8, then God bless. I'm not against it at all. You talked about people wanting to add a luxury in Bijan Robinson at 8 overall. Well, how about a luxury to continue to fortify that offensive line? I mean, has there been a team in the last 5 years that has proven to be quarterback proof or independent more than what the Eagles did last season? Like with
maybe the 49ers.
Maybe that's another good one. So that's I think adding to the offensive line is a route that is not likely compared to edge and cornerback, but one that there is merit to it.
I know the top end of the draft, first 3-4 rounds better than the back end. And we did this on Monday on the Falcons podcast, and this was a dream mock for me. So you ask, Scott, what would you do? This is what I would do. Tyree Wilson would be a great choice at 8 edge. Steve Avila with a second round pick. Guard, plug and play, left guard. And then there's your wide receiver, and then your running back, Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears can fly. Mm-hmm. I just being able to get a guy like Tajay Spears in the 4th just tells me I don't want to take Bijan at number 8.
Yeah.
I love Bijan. The first time I saw him run, he was a freshman. I'm like, okay, he needs to go right to the pros and save the wear and tear on his body. But let's get into this. We'll start draft, and we can go. Panthers are on the clock.
Need to see the screen though.
Yeah, let me reshare that. Dum. I stopped the share. Entire screen.
Panthers are on the clock. I say let's just do what the talking heads have been saying that they're going to do for now. Let's not do anything too spicy. Let's give them CJ Stroud. There is some talk about Anthony Richardson. Maybe Bryce Young could still be an option there, but CJ Stroud right now seems to be chalk. I think that's the way to go for us.
Yep, and I think picking next, I still feel Bryce Young is in the top 2 with who? And right now it feels like CJ Stroud's going to be number 1. So I go Houston Texans with Bryce Young. This pick has become a bit more of a question for Arizona. There's talk about them, switching out with the Colts. That way the Colts get their pick of the next 2 picks and somebody doesn't jump over them and take the 3rd quarterback. But in this case, we're going to stay in this spot. I want to stick with my gut here and say that I may have taken Jalen Carter at one point, but I would go Will Anderson now.
Will Anderson definitely seems like an option. And I think it was Daniel Jeremiah about 2-3 weeks ago put in Tyree Wilson here as well. So I think Tyree Wilson is in the conversation here.
And he only had to move him up like 1 spot. He's been real high on Tyree Wilson, not as high on Will Levis. But I want to go. I do want to go Will Anderson in this spot. I think Carter has hurt his stock enough that it could cost him a top 5 spot. I don't think he gets out of the top 10.
No, I agree. So Will Anderson's the way to go here in my opinion.
And he's not going to get out of the top 10 in mine. In my mock draft. So now you're going quarterback. Lamar Jackson's still an option for the Indianapolis Colts. Mm-hmm. They have been eerily quiet this offseason. Yet they got moved up to 6.5 wins by DraftKings as well. And you want to talk about a team that has no idea who their quarterback's going to be. They got to go quarterback here unless something happens. Right now, nothing has happened. Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. And if they don't like these guys at all, get out of there. Trade down. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to take one of these guys. I know who I would take it between these two. What about you?
I think you can go either way with Shane Steichen. I would lean Anthony Richardson because I like the tools, but quarterback is as much about, what's in the chest and what's between the ears. And unless you sit down with those guys and do, FBI level background checks on what makes them tick, then it's hard for us to say from where we sit. So I would lean Richardson, but if they did all the intangible checks and Will Levis ended up being the guy there, I wouldn't fault that. I feel like because Richardson's in this class, we aren't giving as much credit to Levis's tools. Both these guys are risky. Both can be inaccurate. I know Levis was dealing with a foot injury last season that could have zapped him a good bit. The Kentucky offensive line and wide receivers were dreadful as well. So I don't think it's all on Levis. I think he's a top 10, top 12 caliber pick as well. But he's not Anthony Richardson as far as the tools. So I would lean Richardson personally. And also, what good we talked about it earlier, but the development, run kind of interesting scheme quarterback that we saw with the Eagles last year. Who was their offensive coordinator? Shane Steichen. Where does he coach now?
Indianapolis Colts.
I think you can go good with either of these guys.
These are the two best. And Brendan asked the question, if they're on Lamar, they'd probably go Richardson, right? Not necessarily. Will Levis and Anthony Richardson are the two most athletic running quarterbacks. Now, you didn't see that as much as Levis because he took so many sacks last year at Kentucky, ended up with negative rushing yards. But as far as the ability to run, it's these two over Stroud and Carter. So if you're trying to look for the next Jalen Hurts type of guy, you're better off with these guys. Will Levis is a good athlete. Anthony Richardson is an elite athlete. Will Levis, and they both have really good arms. Will Levis is definitely much more accurate, much more refined. But I'm Shane Steichen. I'm a head coach in this league, which means I'm arrogant. And I believe I can mold these guys with tools into something. And I don't mean that as a negative. They don't get to where they are without being super confident in themselves. I'm going Anthony Richardson on this one too, for those reasons. And you don't have to play him right away. Who did they bring in? They brought in Minshew, Gardner Minshew.
Yep.
Yeah. So Gardner Minshew can start. The expectations won't be sky high for this team, depending on what they do. And you could have some time. And you can build packages for Anthony Richardson to get him in the game right away. When the Falcons had both Chris Chandler and Michael Vick, Chandler started Vick's rookie year, but they found ways to use a 4-2 guy on the field. Richardson's like that. I'll find a way to get this guy on the field. So I'm going Anthony Richardson there too. Leon Mapstone, hello. Good to see you again. Glad you're here. Appreciate you.
The outfit is just amazing.
I love it.
Fit. It's the Memphis Tigers there. It's incredible.
I mentioned here, I'm going Jalen Carter in this spot for the Seahawks.
I think I'm going to lean Tyree Wilson personally. They spent big money on Draymond Jones. Obviously, Jalen Carter. Draymond wouldn't keep you from taking Jalen, but Tyree Wilson feels like a safer player. Also, specifically, the Seahawks were freaking terrible at edge defense last season, stopping the run. So I think Tyree Wilson can fix that more so as a safer thing, a safer player for them. And I mean, you're talking about the team that used Michael Bennett for a number of years, inside, outside. I think Tyree Wilson can do that role.
A good pick at 5.
That'd be my
record. I would take for the Seahawks. I would take Jalen Carter in this spot. But I'm gonna lean.
You can do what you want.
No, I'm gonna. What's the word? I'm not gonna submit. That's a little strong. I'm gonna yield. I'm gonna yield here to Nick and go Tyree Wilson. Number 6. All right. Well, Detroit here is in a good spot. They feel okay at the quarterback position. And it's not just these guys. There's, when we're talking about the top 15, there's a lot of variance between where these guys rank. Porter could be top 10. Christian Gonzalez could go in the top 5. I think Quentin Johnson might be a little high here at 9. Will Levis, we've seen anywhere from 1 to 20 so far this month. I'm not letting Jalen Carter get by the Lions, though.
I'm with you here. There's been some talk about Jalen Carter and the Lions over the last 48 hours. Campbell was talking about him yesterday, saying that they have a couple of, I don't know who it is on that defense, but they have a former Georgia Bulldog on there that says, there's some interest there from Georgia. Campbell's like, I've been talking to some people about Jalen Carter. We learned some stuff, but I think Carter here makes a lot of sense. It's a fit that we haven't talked about that much yet. Also, and that's a team that's been dreadful on the defense. You put another investment there. I know they took Aleem McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson out there. Houston, the edge rusher as well, they took from Jackson State last season. So that's one that I think makes a lot of sense.
And Kevin says defer. That is absolutely the word I was looking for. Thank you, sir. Tyler Eccles says Indy is not a QB away from the playoffs either. So why take the risk and possibly be up for Caleb Williams next year? Because you don't go into a season planning to tank for the next season, at least not that obviously. And so you're taking your quarterback of the future. That's why Anthony Richardson makes sense. You're not up for the playoffs next year. So why not get an uber talented guy like Anthony Richardson now while you can? Because there's absolutely no guarantee you will have a chance to take Caleb Williams or Drake May or one of the top 2. You'll have to be 1 or 2 to get those 2 guys, or you're going to have to be 1 or 2 to get those 2 guys.
Anything can happen, but when I look at their roster, I think that this was probably a bottom out year for the Colts, and a team next year that seems way more in line to be that tanking team is a team like the Cardinals. So that's, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. Raiders on the clock now. I think this is a great spot for Will Levis.
I was
Personally.
thinking, like, they just got Jimmy G, right?
Yep.
But that's not a long-term option.
No.
He's in his contract's probably set up where they could go 1 or 2 years with him and move out. And what a great way to bring in a first-round quarterback where you can ease him in some. And hopefully the next coach will like him after McDaniels gets fired. Kidding, kind of. But yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I know they just put some money into Jimmy G, but it makes sense for me. It makes sense to me here too. I agree. So Will Levis, the hype around Will Levis and his pro day throws and everything is going to be sky high. He is a pretty thrower of the football. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. He's got, if we're going and we're watching all 4 of these guys and they all go to a pro day setting and throw side by side, Will Levis is your number 1 pick. No doubt.
Maybe Richardson.
So, getting him at 7 is a pretty good opportunity here. For me, this pick at number 8, but lots of questions coming in, that had come in today. This pick becomes real easy for me at well, I wouldn't say real easy. It's still close for me because I really like Van Ness. Mm-hmm. But on this board, it becomes pretty easy for the Atlanta Falcons with Tyree Wilson off the board. What I say earlier today, y'all. Tyree Wilson, Christian Gonzalez, Lucas Van Ness. I think one of those guys should be there at 8. 2 of them are right now, so we've got a choice.
Yeah,
Christian Gonzalez or Lucas Van Ness.
I personally would go Christian Gonzalez.
I'm okay with that too.
I love Lucas Van Ness, and maybe that's me guarding against my own bias here. Christian Gonzalez, I think, is better in an off coverage scheme. If you're looking for press every single time kind of guy, I don't think he's that physical type of dog on the outside, but he's very fluid. He's a great athlete, got good ball skills, smart. He'd have been a first-round pick if he stayed at Colorado last year rather than transferring to Oregon, where he was able to better showcase because he was surrounded by better players. So I would go Christian Gonzalez here. But if somebody wanted to make the case for a Devon Witherspoon, if somebody wanted to make a case for one of these offensive linemen, if somebody wanted to make a case for Lucas Van Ness, I would completely understand it. But the one for me here is Christian Gonzalez. And honestly, Scott, this is not what we're doing today with this Falcons team, but I like it enough of the talent here that, let's say the Titans wanted to move up to number 8 here and I could move back to 11, or somebody, if I could stick in the top 14, I would consider at least what the offers are there. But if we have to make the pick here, I would probably take Christian Gonzalez.
I'm going Christian Gonzalez too. And there's a lot of ways, like we've said all along, and Joe says a sound went out. So give us a heads up in the stream. It's okay for me. I heard Nick come through just fine, but we're on the back end here. I would go Christian Gonzalez here as well, or a Lucas Van. Like I said, I'm really intrigued by a 6'5", 280-pound guy running in the 4.5s with his athleticism, and the versatility that you have there. But I'm okay with this. We really advocated for the Falcons last year for Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley. They were both gone at 8 last year, and those would have been really good picks, especially Sauce to put up opposite AJ Terrell. AJ Terrell is going to be worth $20 million next year. One more year, he'll get his first round option picked up. Then you're going to have to pay the man. He's going to be expensive. So to have 2 of those guys, one on a rookie contract, one getting paid, that's okay. You can get away with that. So I'm going Christian Gonzalez here too. Like that pick. The Bears, again, they're a lot like the Falcons. They had holes everywhere. So you can go best prospect available here. But what do you feel? You shore up that offensive line? Do you get a receiver for Justin Fields? Because he hasn't had a ton of weapons. They tried a little bit with Chase Claypool, but that wasn't a number 1.
Yeah, I'm taking Peter Skronsky here. I'm going meat and potatoes. Local guy from Chicago. I know that pairing, Jackson Smith and Jigba with Justin Fields, although I don't know how much overlap there was there. I mean, they were there at the same time, but I don't know how much Jackson Smith and Jigba was playing given the unbelievable talent that Ohio State has at wide receiver. But Peter Skronsky, I think, is the way I'm going to go here. Just one of the safest players in the draft. Justin Fields was the second most sacked player last season. The only reason he wasn't the most sacked is because he got injured and missed games. So I'm going to try to make it as easy for him as possible. I think we can scheme up some guys getting open as well. We can add more talent later. I think it's going to be, put it this way, we're going to have more picks coming up. It's going to be easier to find a wide receiver that I like, I think, day 2 versus an offensive tackle / offensive lineman in general that I feel good
agree.
about.
And I think they had Broderick Jones at right tackle last year, who really overachieved and did really well. Now it's
Braxton Jones.
Braxton Jones. Sorry, Broderick Jones is in this draft. Braxton from Southern Utah, 5th round pick, I believe. And they've got Peter Skoronski, who is solid as can be in this spot. Let's shore up the tackle positions. You might not have the big weapons for Justin Fields.
I mean, they added DJ Moore.
That's true also, which is a really another good pick. So that's another knock against wide receiver.
Yeah.
So the weapons don't necessarily matter if you can't block. Let's shore up the lines. I'm happy with that one too. Let's go Peter Skoronski. And I'm going to hit on the chat real quick. Peter Skoronski at 9. Leon's been asking, what is Lamar Jackson going to do? I think after all the huffing and hollering and all that stuff, at the end of the day, he's going to be a Baltimore Raven. That's what I think.
The question is, does he sit out?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
That's the question.
I don't think so. Neither one of them can afford that.
I mean,
he can afford it.
They can afford it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's, everybody's like, oh, nobody want to trade for him for the injuries. Well, why the hell would I play on a 1-year contract when I could be leaving multiple millions?
Lamar Jackson, who's 26 years old.
Yeah.
He could sit out a year. These guys will sit out a year. It used to have to sit out a year or 2 to transfer schools, and they would. He's 26. He could sit out a year, heal up his body, go on a showcase, and I think he could afford it. I don't think they can. We'll see. I think he ends up a Raven at the end of the day.
It's ugly, and also in social media, it's very public, right? Like he's tweeting about it as well. I don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson, but if I was, some people might be irritated at this, but if I was his agent or in his ear, I'd be like, listen, everybody's like, oh, we don't want to pay you because you're going to be injured. Well, then why the bleep would you pay? Why would you play then until you get paid? If they're so worried about that, then maybe you should say, okay, well then, God, why the heck would I play?
Yeah, I'll just sit out then. It is definitely interesting. I root for players, and he came out and said he was offered 4 with 133 or 3 with 133 guaranteed. That's about Daniel Jones money.
Mm-hmm.
He wants a little more than that. And again, you're turning down $100 million. It's not the money. It's just not. That's not what it means to these guys. It's an ego thing, and it's how they feel they are valued by their team, by their league, by how they are paid amongst their peers. It matters. It matters more than the extra $20 million because they've got more money than they'll ever be able to spend regardless. It's a value thing. And whatever job you've been in, hopefully you've been in an opportunity where you're making enough money where it's just like, okay, it's not the money really anymore. It's like, I don't feel appreciated. And no matter what you're making, that's a bad feeling. You want to do something else. And that's what this is about. So we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. But we're now on the clock with the Eagles. Speaking of being able to take luxury picks here, what do the Eagles want to do at number 10 now?
This is an interesting spot, and this is where the Bijan Robinson one, I think, first happens for me.
I did that last year. I did like one of the first picks I did. I was like, who is in a luxury position to take the best player in the damn draft?
Eagles. Now that's
Eagles. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. With that said, Howie Roseman would probably, we'd think he's kidnapped if he used it on a non-value position. So I think the conversation comes here with a number of players, and they're all on the defensive side of the ball for me. One of them being Nolan Smith. I think that he's too low here at 21. I think he's going to be in that 10 to 16 range. Lucas Van Ness also up there as well. I think those two should be talked about. They're the opposites, but in the same thing. So much higher for Lucas Van Ness. You passed him. And then also we talk about Devon Witherspoon for me. They brought back both their cornerbacks. I think that he's not going to be able to help himself with this. So I think Howie Roseman with the defensive line, he just loves to invest in those offense and defensive line. Why go away with what works? I think Lucas Van Ness here for the Eagles.
Yeah, that would, and they're turning into the Ravens for me at that point, where it's like, how do they keep getting these freak players and have these monsters on defense? Oh, because they are freak players, but they weren't considered quite ready, and they got them later on in the draft and didn't necessarily have to throw them to the wolves right away. So again, I thought Lucas Van Ness was good enough to go 8.
Mm-hmm.
That taking him here we talk about a luxury player. Can I develop him for a year and have those tools and really turn him into something, or use him like Iowa did in situations where he may not be a 3-down guy, but designated pass rusher, inside outside versatility.
Yeah,
that would be a fun pick for them. We've got a couple more minutes. We might try and squeeze in a few more here. Titans on the clock. Titans have done some salary cap shedding, Nick, or in the process of doing it. So I'm not sure what they say their needs here are wide receiver or OL. There's plenty of good OL on the board. I think I'd probably rather go OL than wide receiver in a vacuum. Yeah. But what would the Titans rather do here?
Are the Titans as a dark horse team to trade up for Will Levis? If something's going on there, a team that, Ryan Tannehill's contract set up to move on from him here pretty soon. They're an older roster, so getting a young quarterback to help reset that salary cap. I just think that that's a one to maybe keep an eye on there. But Titans, for me, this seems like a pretty easy pick overall. I think that Paris Johnson they need offensive line help. He's probably the best one available. Maybe they make a play for Broderick Jones instead, but I think Paris Johnson's a little bit higher up on my board, so I'd go that way.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. Houston Texans, they got their quarterback. Now, do you get him some protection? Do you get him a weapon?
I think
how do you invest in here? I always like to pair him with his personal protector personally, but I don't really know their situation at tackle.
They just paid Laramie Tunsil to become the highest paid offensive tackle in NFL league history. Obviously, getting another offensive lineman is never a bad way to go, but I think this is a Jackson Smith and Jigba spot here for them. I think that adding that type of player, I mean, even if he's just a zero slot, if you're living in 11 personnel, Bryce Young can find him. He's going to be open.
You know who I might ask? You just froze up.
I think that pairing him with
who I might ask about that pick? What do you think about this guy? I might ask my new quarterback, Bryce Young. What do you think? We're trying to choose between. Give me a quick scouting report on Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, so I think that's the way I'm going to go. I would recommend here.
I like that pick. The Jets are making some noise. It says they need tackle and linebacker. Well, they're not going linebacker at this spot. But Broderick Jones is still out there.
I mean, could they go linebacker and go with Nolan Smith?
Yeah, I mean, edge. I'm not talking. They call that one different, I think.
He's just such a unique player. Like, I don't know if I can share on here, but his mock draftable spider graph is like wild because he's like 0th percentile in height and weight, but then all the athleticism out. It's like if we put Bijan Robinson and changed his position from running back
to defensive tackle,
edge rusher. Yeah, it's like, well, no duh, but that's just how he profiles. It's a really unique player. But I think maybe this is a Broderick Jones spot. I mean, we had a run on tackles here, offensive line. Maybe just go out and fix it and get it done there and add him.
Yeah, I think that if it says, you could go linebacker, but it better be outside at that point. Big guys there as well. Chat's quieted down. There's lots of viewers in here, so say hello if you have any questions or comments. We'd love to see them. It doesn't just need to be me and Nick here talking. Devin Weatherspoon's still on the board here. Whew. He fell out a little bit. Could have gone at 8, and now we're sitting here at 14. The Patriots on the clock. Quarterback, tackle, edge. I'm not sure there's a tackle anymore worth taking in that spot. Edge.
I'd take Weatherspoon. I think that the Patriots, I mean, they play so much cover one out there.
They like physical. I love him.
Yeah, he's a great player. I mean, I think that also he just makes a lot of sense for what they like to do defensively. They like to play that 5-0-5 front, and they like to use one of their. So what they like to do is they like to double opposing teams number 1 with a shaded safety, and then leave the team's number 2 wide receiver in one-on-one situations with a cornerback. Devon Witherspoon out there press man against the number 2 sounds like a good matchup.
All right. Well, we're going to do that one. I'm trying to think of the Packers here, and I can't believe I can't remember the wide receiver's name that I loved so much last year. Big kid.
Christian Watson.
Thank you. Christian Watson. All I can think of was Alec Pierce. I'm like, that's Colts. So what I'm thinking ahead to the Packers, and yes, we are going to take Devin Weatherspoon here, and then we're going to finish this one at 15. We're going to go top 15 today with Quentin Johnson. Becomes real interesting. It says needs basically everything: quarterback, wide receiver, tight end. I don't know that I necessarily want to invest in another wide receiver at this point, knowing that, what do I have in Jordan Love? I just don't see Aaron Rodgers playing for them. I said last year that I think he stays with the Packers. I think that's done and dusted. to get another big wide receiver to go opposite Christian Watson like Quentin Johnson could be real intriguing. Calais Campbell here, big athletic. He's the only
not big.
He's not, but he's fast. I mean, he's real athletic for his size. I was looking at, Ade's, he was a 4.49 at 280 pounds. The only guy who was listed as a defensive tackle at the NFL Combine that ran under 4.8 was Calais Campbell. So someone to, you could do well there. They basically say they need everything here. If I wanted a long-term opposite Christian Watson, Quentin Johnson would fit the bill. Now I got a couple of those big receivers that I love.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to advocate here for a different player, though. I think that the Packers they just kind of have a mold that they go for here, and they look for versatile players that can do a bunch of different things. I think I'm going to say Nolan Smith here. I think we talked about him too much today to not include him in our top 15 mock. I know the Packers exactly need an edge rusher, an offensive line, or a second level linebacker? No, but damn, they could use a good player that could do a little bit of everything out there. Rashawn Gary's coming off of a significant injury out there. The other line, they signed Devondre Campbell, but Quay Walker wasn't incredible out there last year for them. We don't know about the long term for edge rusher Preston Smith. I mean, he could be a cap casualty. Kingsley Enagbare is like just purely a first and second down edge setting guy with absolutely no juice to him. So you put him on first down sometimes, and then second, third down, Nolan Smith. I think it makes a lot of sense.
All right, well, let's go through. We'll recap what we did, and then we'll get out of here. C.J. Stroud won. Texans, Bryce Young. Cardinals, Will Anderson. Colts, Anthony Richardson. Seahawks, Tyree Wilson. Lions, Jalen Carter. Raiders, Will Levis. Falcons, Christian Gonzalez. Bears, Peter Skoronski. Eagles, Lucas Van Ness. Titans, Paris Johnson Jr. Texans again, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jets, tackle Broderick Jones. Patriots, Devin Witherspoon, corner. And Packers with Georgia edge, Nolan Smith.
This is going to sound crazy. I'd be, unless you close it already, I'd be down to do another 5 picks. We typically go until 7:30 anyway. Top 20.
I do have to get going. So
okay.
let's do the top. We'll do the top 15 and we'll blow through.
Good.
Next time we do this, we'll start with the mock draft. We'll do this next week unless something blows up again. And we'll go through an entire first round next Wednesday. So thanks everybody for being here. We had a nice crowd that comes in. It's always a nice crowd, but it was a big and nice crowd today. We got Malcolm Brown coming in a little late. Kevin Fitzpatrick coming in a little late. So they're going to rewatch. Well, leave me a comment when you're watching. The Facebook ones are a little tougher to get to. They don't quite alert the same way. So, the YouTube one, if you leave a comment, ask Ryan Adonis. He's always commenting. I'm going to be there. And I'll send them to Nick if you have any questions directly for him. Want to say thank you very much to our super chat superstars today. We have Michael Ranquillo coming in. We have Philip Hogginson coming in. We had Victor coming in as well. So 3 of y'all that came in and helped keep the lights on, help keep Nick's internet running, and help keeping my forehead good and shiny. Nick and I will be back on youtube.com/Mile High Huddle for Broncos for Breakfast tomorrow morning. And then we will be back talking Falcons Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and then back for Coast to Coast football, which we'll do more. This was a Falcons-oriented show today, but they're the ones making the news this week. And we'll do more overarching stuff, NFL, next week on Coast to Coast, 9 a.m. on Wednesday. Nick, any final words before I pull the plug on today?
Real excited for Friday night. Iowa's playing South Carolina in the Final Four. I saw that the Iowa versus Louisville Elite 8 game was the most watched.
You just said Louisville. I thought I had you trained.
No, I had to go back to Louisville because
that's who you're playing. Okay, yeah, I think Kirk Herbstreit does that on purpose too, because he's an Ohio guy.
Louisville,
and he calls them Louisville. I'm like, he's doing that on purpose.
Yeah, well, they've been talking smack, a little bit upset, but anyway, the other bit was the Iowa versus Louisville game. The Elite 8 that we played up against them was the most watched basketball game on ESPN this entire year, including the NBA and the men's tournament. So Caitlin Clark, must-watch TV. South Carolina's incredible. It's been an awesome women's tournament. I mean, God, I'm not really a basketball person at all, but it's been a lot of fun. So
but we're sports people, and they're a story right now. So I've got 2 baseball games with my 13-year-old on Friday night. So hopefully those will go good. But we'll be back next week again. Everybody, thanks for being here in the chat. It's nice not having to worry about, all the arguments. It's a good crowd in the morning, and we appreciate you being here. Leave us a comment, leave us a share. Check us out on Apple Pods also, and leave us a review. You can find the main one we do is the Falcons podcast on iTunes, so you can check that one out. But we're gonna get out of here. Thanks everybody. Appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time.
See ya.